Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are. Welcome to 2 Cents Wanted. And today, as you already know, we will be discussing Sternritter Z, the zombie Giselle Gewelle. Now, this video kind of turned out to be a happy accident because her Shrift is the zombie, and this video is coming out around Halloween, so I guess this kind of works out. I had decided to do profiles on each Sternritter because the anime is coming back, and it would bring a lot of traffic to the channel, hopefully. So instead of doing my favorites or trying to whittle them down, starting with the big A himself, I decided I would do them in reverse alphabetical order. Some videos clearly will be longer than others, and that will be determined based on how much manga time that each Sternritter has and how interesting they are, their abilities and stuff like that. So without further ado, this is 2 Cents Wanted. Here's my 2 cents. Sternritter Z, Giselle Gewelle, is a member of the Vandenreich, Yuha's army. She's a Sternritter bestowed the Shrift of Z that was carved into her soul by His Majesty Yuha. Giselle is also part of a smaller group of characters known as the Bambis. Giselle is probably my second favorite member of the Bambis because as far as intrigue goes, I feel like only Bambi and Giselle really stand out as characters compared to the others, and obviously we will get into those characters when we get to them in their proper order. I think it's fitting that they are my favorites because of kind of how the relationship turns out later, but I do have to say I don't like it. The design of the Bambis as a whole is fantastic, but I think Bambietta stands out more from the others just because of her pure sadism and charisma. But that's just me, and clearly Bambietta's video will probably be very long because I'll just probably gush for 30 minutes. Now, Gigi's abilities are quite unique in the Bleach universe because there isn't anyone really in the verse who has an ability similar to hers. I mean, until you get to Mayuri copying her, Giselle's Shrift is more powerful than any other control type abilities. Giselle is also unique amongst most Bleach characters because she is the first trans character, but not the only. It is quite funny that she really gets angry though when people notice. Her exchange with Yumichika and Charlotte Coolhorn was really funny to me, and is probably the best thing about Gigi's first solo battle. Kubo treats Giselle with the utmost respect in regards to the person and even her ability. It gets to the point her zombie ability comes off as more powerful than it should, and kind of becomes a great utility or support Shrift. And that's what we're about to get into when it comes to power and ability. Now, initially, I never found Giselle to be that interesting, and I never found her abilities to be all that impressive, but while doing research for this video, I started appreciating her and her character more, specifically her abilities, and I think I've kind of fallen in love with her Shrift. She is small and she's not very impressive physically, and she doesn't really have any physical feats to speak of, aside from taking damage from Royal Guard trained Ichigo. She probably used Blut Veen to survive his initial attack, which may have only been a throw, but it is worth noting. The first time she took the attack, she was bleeding from her head, so she did take some damage, but the second time, she didn't take really any damage at all, and it was kind of played up as a joke, so I can't really count that one. But for her Blut Veen, if that is what she used, could hold up to an attack from that Ichigo, then she clearly has a captain's level Ryatsu or higher. I mean, she is a Sternritter bestowed Shrift by Yuha, so that's probably why she is so powerful in that area. She is a Quincy, which means she does have access to Quincy abilities, or at least some of them. She can use Hirinkaku. She's shown to fly several times without any type of reishi wings, so she's definitely using some Quincy abilities outside the norm. She has her Heilig Bogen, or her spirit weapon, which is summoned using a heart-shaped Quincy cross that produces a skeletal-like bow, which definitely fits her motif of the zombie. She also has Heilig File, which look like skulls. The arrows she shoots, they're not pointed, so I imagine maybe they're more of like a blow-up on contact kind of arrow. So I always find that interesting that the Bambi's arrow tips for their Heilig File are generally not arrows. Her Volstandig, which is a power-up exclusive to Sternritter, isn't really much to talk about either. It also has a zombie motif with the skeletal wings, which actually I think is probably like in my top 10 favorite Volstanic designs. I really like it, even though it's very simple. But she isn't really good at using it. She does tire out with it, and it reactively activates when her fellow Sternritter close by activate theirs, showing a lack of control, and that isn't good. That doesn't really show a very well developed fighter on her part. But Giselle does excel in another area, her Shrift. Now, the Shrift itself, Z, the zombie, just based on the name, would maybe make you think that Giselle herself was just a zombie and to a degree has some level of immortality, resurrection, or regeneration. Or maybe even you think she's a John Domingo type voodoo witch doctor making zombies out of people and healing others. If you thought any of those things, you'd be correct. All of the abilities are byproducts of her Shrift. Off the top of my head, her Shrift seems to have the most abilities, and even again, I think she might have the most utility in her Shrift than any of the others. I never used to really like her Shrift, but after doing research for this, it's kind of slowly, I'm falling in love with the zombie. Giselle's blood seems to be the source of all of her abilities, except for one, which I'll get into. If someone other than a Quincy is touched by her blood, they fall under her thrall and become zombified. The Quincy immunity goes away after their death, however, for example, when Giselle turned Bambi into a zombie. Giselle is able to control anyone infected completely, aside from their speech, which is noted by Toshiro and Bambietta still being able to talk. Her zombies still have access to their abilities, but the effectiveness of their overall ability seems to diminish with the condition of the person affected. For example, Bambietta, while alive, was able to take on two captains, Sajin and Shinji, with little to no difficulty whatsoever, and take out most of the 7th Division, again, with no difficulty. And then later, when she's a zombie, she becomes outsped by characters like Ikaku and Yumichika. Now, they aren't weak by any means, but they're definitely not Sajin or Visor level characters. And while Toshiro was a zombie, he was still fairly powerful, if not more so than normal, because in my opinion, that is maybe my favorite Toshiro of at any point in the series. Even what he does with the Bankai, Zombie Toshiro may be like my favorite. He's just a fantastic character as a zombie, and his strength, you can actually see why people are afraid of him sometimes. Giselle's Shrift really isn't an optimal offensive Shrift. It is only offensively viable if she can get her hands on a powerful zombie like Kensei, Rose, Toshiro, like I gave an example for. Where Giselle's Shrift really excels is its defense and support ability. Now, the defensive abilities deal mostly with her ability to spill blood on her opponent, either by damaging herself or being cut by her opponent. And since most people wouldn't know of her ability, it would be very easy to cut her and get her blood on you, thus making her very dangerous to actually attack. Also, her regenerative ability also works for her defense, because in this panel here, Giselle was almost split in two, and just in about 2 panels, she is fully healed as if the damage never happened. I think again this stems from her own blood. I think GiGi is a zombie herself, so the healing ability her blood has works on herself when she needs it to, but only if she has enough blood. The reason I say this is because after she played dead and snuck off after her loss to Mayuri, she started draining Bambi of her blood that she gave her. I can't think of any other reason as to why she was doing that other than to recover from losing her battle. She even snaps at Bambi for stopping her, which I thought was a bit not out of character, but it shows that there is a crazier side to Bambietta. And I think she was snapping and angry because, one, she was frustrated she lost, but at the same time, I think that the blood helps her regenerate, so the more she has, the easier it is for her to regenerate. Now, her regeneration ability isn't just reserved for herself. She can actually repair damage to her allies by using dead flesh and bone, which she does. She takes it from the dead body, I think, of like an 11th Division member or 7th Division member, and she uses it to fully reconstitute an arm for Candace Catnip, one of her fellow Bambi Sternritter. But again, this is one of those abilities that I don't think is necessarily tied to her blood, but maybe it is just a Shrift. When Candace asked GiGi to make her a new arm, she told her not to use blood. I'm not sure why Candace was being so cautious. Either Candace doesn't understand GiGi Shrift, which is fully possible because Candace isn't shown to be very intelligent, or GiGi is as nefarious as we think, and Candace knows it. An even more interesting note is that these zombies are not empty dolls. They are still people on the inside of those dolls, and they still have access to their abilities. I think her Shrift reanimates them to a degree that they are alive, in quotation marks. The blood must reanimate the body because Mayuri correctly deduces that Giselle needs to use a lot more of her blood for beings with higher Reiatsu, and these captain level beings' skin turns red because the amount of her blood is spreading all over the body. Giselle needs the heart to distribute her infectious blood all over the body so that it can combat the natural resistance because of the captain character's high level Reiatsu. So hard to say it together. This makes sense also because in order for Mayuri's drug to turn Giselle's zombies into his own zombies, he needed the blood, the sample he had of the characters, to pump in their bodies along with the drug to replace the infected Giselle blood. The other thing that speaks to them being alive to a degree is how Sternritter L, who shall not be named, can control Bambi's zombies by using his Shrift, which induces an emotion of love that only exists in things that have brain function. And I think this also kind of takes us into the weaknesses of this Shrift very nicely. Mayuri exposes them very well in his fight with Giselle. Since the ability is not directly tied to Giselle's own spiritual pressure, the effects can be overridden through natural means like Mayuri's drugs or other abilities. Zombies can still be paralyzed and impaired, as shown with Toshiro. It also can be overridden by others' abilities, like again Sternritter L's The Love. The other weakness, which isn't necessarily a weakness, but because it is absent from the ability, I think it diminishes it. Giselle's zombies are noted to not be infectious. If you destroy a zombie and get blood on you, you'll be fine. Taking attacks from them is not infectious either, so if one bites you or cuts you, you won't become one of her zombies. But that's really the only weaknesses I can think of for the Shrift. It has to be said that no one has outright killed GiGi, and not for a lack of trying, not even Yuha. And I think this goes to show how well developed her Shrift was by Kubo, at the same time how underrated and sneaky it can be. Her Shrift is pretty powerful. Now for GiGi's personality. I can sum up Giselle's personality in one picture. See here. Giselle is a very sadistic character who resembles Soul Society arc Mayuri in her level of depravity. GiGi, however, hides this sadistic nature behind a mask of funny faces, drooling smiles, and cutesy feminine poses. Giselle keeps this facade up at all times, even when things are getting serious or she's being attacked. She keeps a consistent outward appearance. This motif is carried throughout her character. She's hiding the fact that she's a male, she's hiding the nuance behind her abilities, she's even hiding the fact that she wants to turn everyone into a zombie. But as noted earlier, not knowing her abilities does make GiGi dangerous, and so does this character. She is similar to Gin Ichimaru in the fact that she prides herself on letting people try and figure out her ability, but is off-put when someone actually does put it together. Giselle's outward facade is broken, however, only a handful of times, and it is only in cases where she's frustrated or turned on. I mean, that second part. But generally when Giselle is kind of pissed off, unless that mask drop, is generally in those moments. Her sadistic side comes out. She gets pissed off when Yumichika called her a man, or Charlotte insinuated that they were the same somehow. In both cases, she flew off the handle. Even again later, when she's sucking the blood from Bambi's corpse, she gets mad when Bambietta stops her from drinking and begins to smash Bambi's head into a rock until it seems Bambi is dead. This overreaction was probably exacerbated by the fact that she lost to Mayuri and took significant damage. But the moment she realized that she went off the handle, the mask comes back on and she's back to her usual self. Overall, Giselle has the second biggest personality as far as the Bambis go, and she is loyal to her fellow Sternritter, until she isn't. When Yuha abandoned the Quincy still fighting in Serite, Giselle joins the other Quincy survivors to take on Yuha. She even puts aside her anger at Mayuri. Giselle is a character in every sense of the word, and I would go as far as to say a highlight of the 1,000-year blood war. She was powerful in her own way, strange and funny, which are all part of Tate Kubo's calling card, especially within Bleach. And that's all on Giselle Gewelle the zombie. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you like her? Do you hate her? Are you ambivalent? Or maybe she just doesn't even register on your radar. Let me know in the comment section below. Like and subscribe. Until I see you again, bye.